Hi greedy 3Ders. If you're here today, you're not here for an in-depth review and an unboxing of the Uniformation GK2. There's plenty of videos on the Tinterweb to show you that. In fact, I've done an unboxing and a thorough review, which you can see here. Today you're here because you want to know what it's been like for me using this over the last 6 months. So let's talk about the GK2. Let's talk about my experiences with it, and let's talk about some of the good things and the bad things that I've experienced. Stay tuned. So I bought this GK2 back in June 2023 in the middle of a British summer. But I didn't buy it for the British summertime, I bought it for the typical British wintertime. Where, as you can see, temperatures fall well down to below freezing. Now I print outside in this wonderful man cave, but in the wintertime in the UK it gets very, very cold. So I needed a printer that could deal with that cold and provide prints that worked in minus, or sometimes minus degrees. And the Unification GK2 has a built-in heater, but we'll come back to that later. So how have I got on over the last 6 months using this printer as my main printer? Let me tell you about some of the things that I really like about it. Let's start with its aesthetic. It looks nice and I like the green, but that's a personal preference. But what I really do like about its aesthetic is this lid. I've only got a small space to work in out here, and when I have to take the lid off a printer and find somewhere to put it, and then, as you've seen in my previous videos, get resin all over the thing, it's a bit of a nightmare. So the fact that this GK2 allows me to lift the lid without taking it off, get at my 3D print, put a 3D print back on, it is easy, it is simple. I really like that view. I like also the fact that the USB stick is easy to get hold of. Now that's a point of contention with some people, but I like it at the front. I don't want to go ferreting around the back of my printer. I don't want to go ferreting around the side of my printer. Space for me is at a premium, and I have the USB stick at the front. Now for some people that doesn't work for them, but for me it does work and I like it. So let's now start at the top of the printer and work our way down. Let's look at the build plate, and I'll put the dimensions for the build volume here so you can see them. Again, this isn't an in-depth review, but let's put them there as a refresher for you. The build plate itself is a quick release build plate. There's no big knobs you need to fiddle with on the GK2. Literally one-handed, I can take the build plate off quickly and get my print out, and I really like that. Now I did wonder, how is this mechanism going to cope with months and months of use? Well, let me tell you, I've had zero problems with it. The mechanism is as firm today as it was on day one. It has proved to be fantastic and I really like that. Let's work our way down into the vat itself. Now the vat itself is a quick release vat. No little knobs you have to fiddle with to get the vat out.
Good grief, it gets worse and worse.
But the vat has caused me a couple of problems, and as much as I like the quick release function of it, I have had a couple of issues with the vat, and let me tell you about those. The first issue that I had with the vat was it got stuck in the printer, and for love nor money, using my brute strength alone, I could not get it out. I did manage to get it out eventually, and there is a simple trick to know how to get it out, and if you want to know what that simple trick is, I'll put a link to the video that I made about that at the end of this video, but it's not quite as drastic as it first may appear. However, the vat did get stuck in the machine, and that was down to the FEP actually splitting and allowing some of the resin to ooze into the bottom and solidify under the ultraviolet light, and that is why it broke. So that was the first problem I had with the vat. The second problem was it became loose. It started to wobble. And when I looked at the bottom of the vat, you will see there are 4 little feet that hold the vat in position at the bottom of the printer. Now these work really well and it holds it in wonderfully. But when I looked at mine, I realised that 3 of the 4 metallic little clips had broken off. Now I don't know if that was down to me. Maybe it was the time I tried to pull the vat out, or whether they've just broken through wear and tear. But either way, 3 of the 4 clips broke completely, meaning that the vat now was not holding. So when the bill plate lifted on the first or second print, the VAT would lift with it, which is no good for printing. I did contact Uniformation. I contacted their help department via Facebook, and within a day I'd had a contact back to asking me for a video and a photograph of what was going on underneath the VAT, which I duly sent. I had a reply within literally half an hour saying that I needed some new feet for the VAT, and there was a link sent to me to download these new feet, and I had to print these new feet and connect them on. Now that's okay if you've got a printer. If you haven't got a printer, you're in a little bit of a dilemma of what to do. Maybe you can get someone else to print it, but that's a little bit awkward. The fact is, I needed 4 of these little clips. I needed 3, but 4 always comes in handy. And I was lucky enough to have another printer that I could print them on. But what GK2 did also do for me is in the post straight away from China, they sent me 4 brand new metallic clips, which arrived within a week to 7 to 10 days-ish. But they did arrive, they were free of charge, and they were given to me, and that's an amazing, amazing customer service. What I would suggest you do, I will put a link in the description to where you can download these little feet from. I suggest you download them just in case you're going to need them. And I also suggest you print them in a high quality, strong resin, nothing brittle. Remember, these hold your VAT in position. So I'll put a link in the description where you can get them from. Print them with something firm. If you're going to do them on an FDM, and I don't see why you can't, maybe consider using something a little bit tougher than PLA. Now, I've changed the FEP twice on the resin tray. The first time because I absolutely battered it to death with print after print after print, and it needed to be replaced. The replacing process was no harder than any other replacement FEP that I've done, and I was really lucky that Uniformation sent me a couple of spare ones with the printer. If I had to buy those particular FEPs, they are quite expensive, as you can see here. This was taken from Amazon in the end of November 2023. They're quite expensive. The other thing I needed to replace twice on this printer was the screen protector. Now, when it comes to you, it will have a screen protector in situ, so that is a bonus. But when I had my leak, I needed to change that screen protector. And when my FEP had died, the screen protector just looked a little bit grubby, so I changed it then. Again, they're not the cheapest things to buy, and I'll put a link in the description of where you can get them from if you need them. But when I did have a few printing problems with it, when the FEP had reached the end of its life, once I changed the FEP and I changed the screen protector, everything went back to normal. So let's talk about its print quality. I've used this as my main printer now since June. I have battered this thing day in, day out, 24 hours a day, print after print after print. I have made some fantastic creations on this, and you can see here that the quality of them is absolutely fantastic. Once you've dialed your resin in, and sometimes that's the biggest problem with any printer, is getting the resin settings right. Once you've dialed your printer settings in, this thing throws out some incredible prints, as you can see here. And one of the reasons why it throws out such incredible prints is because, as we spoke about right at the start, it's got a heater. So I know I can safely print day, night time, summertime, winter time, when the weather plummets, when the weather rises. The heater is automatic. You don't have to do anything unless you want to fiddle, but you don't have to. Once you press the print button on the GK2, the first thing that happens, well, the second thing that happens, we'll come back to the first thing, is that the heater will heat your resin up until it reaches a satisfactory, agreeable temperature. And for me, it's about 30 degrees, and it will print. And I have had virtually no failures at all. You're always going to get the odd failure, but nothing that it can be blamed or attributed to the GK2. Now, I said it's the second thing it does. The first thing that it does is it copies your 3D print file from the little USB stick across to its hard drive. Now that is a fantastic thing, and it's a wonderful thing to know that it's sat there on the hard drive. The only problem with that is if the hard drive fails, you're going to need to replace the hard drive. It's not just a case of a USB stick that you need to swap over because it's gone faulty. So although I think that is a positive, that could be a negative if it fails. It hasn't failed on me, I hastened to add. So is there anything that I would like to improve on the GK2 moving forward, which may be able to be fixed with a firmware upgrade. It may be able to be fixed with the next generation of GK2. Well, I think there is a couple of things that I would like to change. One is you cannot preheat your resin. This has to happen during the printing process, which means if you wanted to save a little bit of time, like preheating your PLA printer, with this resin printer, you can't do that. You have to literally press print and wait for it all to heat up. Now, is that a negative? For me, it would just save me a little bit of time when I'm printing, but it's not a game changer. Just moving back to the hard drive. When the hard drive starts to get a little bit full and you want to delete files from it, you have to delete those files individually. I cannot find a way of deleting them en masse. There is no erase all function. Now, again, is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? Because you may not want to delete some of the files on it, and a delete all may cause that to happen. But there should be at least a function where I can select a couple of prints to remove, to delete them. And I think that would be a really easy fix to do. So Uniformation GK2, I'll leave that one with you. Coming back to the feet, I do think it would be very advantageous for Uniformation to include a link with the description of the printer, maybe in the book, to a download link where you could print these feet from and get them all ready just in case you had a problem with your VAT. I think that would be a really useful move. Now, one of the other things that is a concern for me is the fill level on the VAT. There is no discernible fill level. Yes, there's this little ingress here that you should not fill past, but it wouldn't be too hard to fill past it, and beginners might not realise that, and that will cause a disaster if it overflows into the mechanism of the printer. So Uniformation, maybe a clearer do not fill past this line level would help. So above all, and in conclusion, what are my thoughts of the Uniformation GK2 after 6 months of solid use? This printer is an absolute workhorse. It is an absolute godsend, and it is by far the best printer that I've ever used when it comes to resin. Now, it's not cheap. The cost of this printer, you could probably get 2, maybe 3 Saturns for it. But when you look at the quality, when you look at the built-in heater, when you look at all the innovations that Uniformation are achieving with this printer, and when you look at what this thing churns out on a day-to-day basis, the money that I spent on this printer is absolutely well worth it. And I look forward to the next generation of Uniformation GK2 with built-in Wi-Fi, which it doesn't have at the moment, although there is a module that you can get from Uniformation that does allow you to monitor your prints remotely. There's no camera on here. Would have been nice if we'd had a bit of a camera setting, maybe on the next iteration of the new GK3, if that is even in the making. But as resin printers go, and I've owned a few of them, this is by far the best I've had, the most reliable I've had, and again by far has given me the best results. Now, I hope you've enjoyed that 6-month review. I think it's important to do reviews months and months down the line. It's all too easy to tell you what people think of these things when they use it for a day or two. But 6 months later, you'll start to find all the nooks and crannies of the good and the bad in this. If you like what you see today on Greedy 3D, please subscribe to the channel. Your subscription is important and every one of them is appreciated. If you want to join the Patreon, there'll be a link in the description where you can do that. And I want to say here a great big thank you to my patrons for supporting the channel so far. If you want to buy yourself a GK2, there'll be a link in the description. It is an affiliate link and a little bit will kick back to me, but it won't cost you guys any more. But if you want to buy one, please follow the link in the description, and I'll see you real soon on Greedy 3D. Love